Mr. Global and I have complete opposite views on what's going on. He's one of the best creators on this app, and he is the go-to source for energy policy and just overall oil information, right there with Robert Rapier. And he is absolutely convinced that Russia, which is in OPEC Plus along with the rest of OPEC, are increasing production to cut out American market share and really harm the American economy and crush our oil industry. Now, Mr. Global is absolutely right that this will hurt Americans. It will bring down a lot of American energy firms. It will increase the price of natural gas, and it's going to make our energy bills go that much higher. It's also going to increase the cost of gasoline at the pump by far. No argument there. What we don't agree on is who will be hurt more and how bad is this really for Russia if they're participating in this. So here's my case. Russia's economy is in much, much worse shape than the United States. Russia wishes they had our economic problems. In March of this year, Russian official figures reported 10% inflation. It's most likely much higher. So things are getting much more expensive for the average Russian consumer. Russia's interest rate is 21%. Remember when everyone was freaking out when our interest rate was 5.5% because it meant that money wasn't flowing in our economy very easily? It is literally exponentially worse for Russia. And even Russian-based economists are saying that there is a huge risk of having a run on the banks. The exact word for Russia's Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting says that there is an increased possibility of a depositor flight or a run. A run on the banks means that people take out all of the money, the banks fail, this happens across the country, and it leads to a collapse of the overall banking system. On top of all of this, they are tripling their deficit target because they are going to be seeing less energy income. Look up any oil journal and it'll tell you the oil price plunge will severely impact Russia's economy. For the month of April alone, even though they've been exporting more, their oil and gas revenues have dropped by 22%. According to the Luxembourg Times, now Russia is going to start relying on non-oil income growth stemming from higher taxes. So not only are the Russian people suffering higher prices from inflation or overall businesses shut down because of impossibly high interest rates, they are now dealing with higher taxes coming. And all of this is happening while Russia is failing at a 3-year campaign to conquer Ukraine, which they still haven't been able to do. So then why on earth is Russia going along with OPEC and OPEC Plus by increasing the oil supply? Why is Russia making their oil cheaper and harming their economy and cutting their ability to fund the war as effectively as they need? This is where I agree with Mr. Global. Russia wants to crush the American energy industry. They want to make gasoline prices and natural gas prices higher, afflicting all Americans who pay any kind of utility bill. But they also want to start regaining the market share that America took since America has been increasing production. In fact, we are the world's largest oil producer now at over 13 million barrels a day. But we also can't forget that Russia is desperate for any kind of capital inflow because they are losing money from all points on this war. Just like in the USSR in the 1980s, Russian foreign exchange reserves are depleting. They're running out of money, so they need hard cash or any kind of liquidity just to keep the economy moving. So Russia will keep exporting as much as it possibly can just to have some cash on hand to keep foreign revenue inflows, namely from China. So yeah, Russia is going to be increasing their oil production capacity by up to 11.5 million to 12 million barrels a day, except they have to deal with Ukraine bombing their supply stores and of course their refineries. Remember that Ukraine has struck inside Russia 7,000 times with their own homegrown tech without any help from NATO. If you include what NATO gave them, you will probably have well over 10,000 incidents. In February of this year, estimates have suggested that Ukraine has taken down about 10 to 15% of Russia's oil refining capacity just with their own strikes. As Russia will be desperate to produce, store, and refine as much oil as they possibly can, Ukraine will have dozens, if not scores, of more targets to hit that will further cripple the overall Russian energy economy, including the Russian war economy. Speaking of Ukraine, it looks like our president is no longer interested in forcing Ukraine to accept a ceasefire. And it looks like the mineral deal with Ukraine is much more likely, meaning that the US gets to kill two birds with one stone. Ukraine is sitting on tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of rare earth minerals, which is something the United States absolutely needs. Any rare earth mineral deal that the United States makes with a country that isn't China takes away China's monopoly and leverage over the United States military. And while I don't agree that the minerals deal will give us more leverage over Russia, it will galvanize at least half of our population to finally start supporting the war against Russia. I don't know if it was our president or somebody much, much smarter than him who planned this, but it is brilliant because now we have conservatives who see some kind of profit motive for us helping Ukraine. And if this deal does fully materialize, then we are going to see much more right-wing support in Congress towards Ukraine, especially because 25 to, I believe, 40% of Ukraine's rare earth minerals are now in Russian hands. And I would not put it past any administration at this point to help Ukraine kick Russia off of the land that the US wants to exploit. So yeah, I believe that Russia is in a much, much weaker position than the United States. Another thing Mr. Global and I agree on 100% is that Trump crushed our oil and energy industry in about 2018 when he begged OPEC to flood the gates with more oil to try to get cheaper gas. I don't think the oil industry is going to be as eviscerated as it was back then. And my conclusion is why America is so much stronger today than it was in 2018 and, of course, 2019. For one, the oil industry in 2018 was saturated with very cheap debt and very high interest rates. So when the price of oil plummeted, they couldn't make the interest payments and thousands of companies just collapsed. Now, an oil company's interest payments at times can cover 15% of expenses. And look, in 2017, 2018, the interest payments were 12%. Today, they're less than 8. They're maybe 7 or 6.5%. So our oil industry is much leaner today than it was back then. And according to this journal, Taxpayers for Common Sense, it looks like the oil industry was in about $250 to $300 billion in debt around 2017, 2018. I have looked everywhere I could find for what the debt is today, and the greatest estimate I could see was about $200 billion. If that's true, that means they are in less debt today than they were back then when our dollars were more expensive. And don't forget, in April of 2020, when the price of oil really crashed, lower than it's ever actually been, OPEC was still producing oil, so Trump actually threatened Saudi Arabia and said, cut the oil supply or you are going to lose U.S. military support. And guess what OPEC did? They cut the oil supply. And I have no doubt that our current administration is willing to do that again if things get too tenuous with our oil. And then there's the inescapable fact that since 2018, the US has survived the trade wars, COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war. We've had so many horrendous supply shocks that our entire economy has become much more agile, much more lean. All that aside, I still think these production increases are going to hurt the average American and the energy industry because Russia is playing a destructive game of chicken, and they're expecting us to turn away first. Thank you all for watching this very long post. Please follow Mr. Global and watch his stuff. He's a great creator, even though we disagree. I am the Geo Husar, and great minds don't always think alike. Thanks for watching.